interpretación, por favor, levante la mano si ya no está en el canal de si todavía no está en el canal de español.
I want to welcome everybody to today's workshop, and I want to introduce our presenters. First, I'd like to say thank you to Nancy, our interpreter. My name is Victoria. I am the director of the Family Focused Resource Center at Cal State University Northridge. And today's presentation is a collaboration between Family Focused Resource Center, faculty at Cal State Northridge, the Institute for Community Health and Wellbeing at Cal State Northridge, and Help Me Grow LA. Help Me Grow LA is a project that's a collaboration between First 5 LA and the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And the goal of Help Me Grow LA is to inform professionals and parents about child development and to provide resources and information so that people have the tools they need to ensure their child is on a good developmental path, and how to refer to resources that can help if there are any concerns about a child's development. Another goal is to lower the age at which children are identified as having a possible developmental delay. And that's so that the child can benefit from early intervention. So we're happy to be part of this project. And I want to introduce our two presenters. We have Nancy Miodrag, who's a professor at Cal State Northridge in the Child and Adolescent Development Department. And we have Connie Wong, who's a professor of Early Childhood Special Education. And we want this presentation to be informative, but also a conversation. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for people to ask questions and give feedback. And our other important presenter who's going to share her experiences is Carmela. Carmela is a parent, and she is someone that we know through our work at Family Focus, and she has agreed to be here as a parent panelist to talk about her experiences with her child and early intervention. So we're really happy to have you all here. And I'm going to share my screen and start up the presentation. I apologize. I probably should have had that ready, but I was getting ready in the background. Okay. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you see that?
No, we can't, Victoria.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Technology is great when it works. Okay. How about now?
We can see it now.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm just going to try and make it full screen. Just a little bit of a delay there. All right, I think you can see it now. So here you see the title, Your Child's Early Development, Tips and Resources for Understanding the Early Years. And you see all our logos. And here I already introduced our presenters, Nancy Miodrag, Connie Wong, and Carmela. And we're very happy to have you all here. And I'm going to turn it over to, I think Nancy's going to start.
One quick thing, Victoria, can you see if you can make it full screen? Right now it is split between the current slide and the next slide.
Oh, okay.
I think if you just put slideshow, so if you go back, oh yeah, there should be a different.
I do. Well, on my screen, it,
Yeah, that's right. You have the slideshow. You have to share the screen that has the slideshow. This is the speaker notes.
okay. I'm sharing it the same way I always do, so I don't really know what to share differently.
When you push the slideshow, do you have two versions?
No.
No, just one version?
Does someone else want to share it?
On the top, Victoria, can you go to slideshow?
I just see my full screen. I don't see anything.
Yeah, I think you have like it may be the other monitor is sharing.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what to do. So maybe someone else should do this part. This is the way I always do it, and it always works out okay.
I can share it if because I do have it up.
Does that look different?
Oh, I think you've got no. No, it still has the notes. So then it's smaller.
All right. Well, sorry. Who wants to share it?
I can share it.
Okay, so let me make you a co-host. Sorry, guys. This is what we should have worked out before we started, but there we go.
And then, I'm sorry, I need to adjust my screens too.
There we go. Looks great, Connie.
Okay. Give me a second to rearrange my windows. I had it the other way. Sorry. It's all good. Okay. All right, so we went through these. And Nancy, would you like to start?
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. I apologize. I have a little technology issues here with power outage, but I can see your tiny screen. So, okay. So Victoria stated the objectives of this talk. I just wanted to articulate whether you are a parent, a professional, or a student trainee at CSUN. We have several different individuals who have registered for this event. And so keep in mind, if you are a parent, thinking about the developmental milestones that are pertinent to overall development, so social emotional development, cognition, language, which is within cognition, and physical development. And whether your child is on track for meeting those milestones. We're also really interested in providing the overview of these developmental domains, and not just providing an overview. Some of you are parents and professionals and student trainees who understand this field. And so what we wanted to do today was provide the domains, a little bit of background, but also some tips and real-time practical activities for developing a child's social, physical, cognitive, and language competence. For professionals, it's really important as early childhood professionals to listen to family concerns when they do come. Provide adequate, appropriate supports and services through resources for everything from assessment to diagnosis and programming and interventions. And probably most importantly is to be an advocate and help empower families. We know that when families feel empowered, that they thrive, not just survive, but they thrive. For students and trainees, we hope that you take what you have learned from textbook readings in the field and understanding the developmental science behind those domains. And again, translate them into real life settings when you are in the classrooms and working hands-on with children and behind the scenes with families as well. Connie, did you want to talk about eligibility?
Connie, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Let's save that for a little bit later.
Okay.
Okay. But let's start out first with a little icebreaker. We are going to do a quick little scavenger hunt. And so just in a minute, just kind of looking around near wherever you are, see if you can go find an object that's near you that could be used as a toy. So as you look for a toy, an object that could be a toy, think about looking beyond traditional toys. So, something different. And just a hint, if you're at home, the kitchen is a great place to look for toys, for things that could be used as toys. I'll give you a couple seconds. Oh, I said 1 minute. I'll grab something too from my desk. And if you have your item, you can hold it up or show it, or you can share in the chat what you found that you think could be a toy. So I see Arlene has I guess, hold on, let me pause the share, I think. And does that make everybody big? And let's see, I saw Arlene had something. What is that you have?
So I didn't go anywhere. I just grabbed the coaster. And
Sounds
it could be used as maybe I can draw a yes or a no, or have the child flip it and then ask questions back and forth, maybe like a Simon Says type deal. Here's my toy.
Definitely, that looks great. Who else has something that they found? Jennifer, did you find something?
Me, Jennifer?
Oh, Jennifer Newman, sorry. And then we'll go to the other Jennifer.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I have a canvas sea sun bag that I got from a conference I attended, and I thought it would be a good toy. He can put stuff in it and play.
And could even get in it.
Yes, it's big enough. He could.
Or yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with that. Great. Let me see, how do I get? I'm trying to do this this back and forth thing. Okay. Oh, I see in the chat, Jennifer Burns. What do you have? Do you actually have it? Let's see this.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of a cheat because it's already in the shape of a dinosaur, but it's also a phone holder. So they could play dinosaur or use their phone.
Definitely, how fun. I see Diane said she has keys. And Gabriella says she has an eyeglass case. Oh, you want to share your eyeglass case? Let me see that. Oops.
Let me unmute myself.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was thinking this eyeglass case because my 1-year-old loves to take stuff in and out of baskets or drawers or things like that. So I think he'll find that fun.
That would be perfect. I could even see putting things in there, shaking it out, and there are so many possibilities with that. That's a
Yes.
thing. What some great ideas. And I see Diana has a lint roller. That has possibilities too. Very good. I love all these ideas.
Empty box. Those are
An empty box, definitely. Empty boxes, even like empty tissue boxes. They have a little slot. So just like the eyeglass case, we can take anything and, you know, put it in, take it out. It's very fun. But even things in the kitchen, like pots, can be fun. You know, lots of bang the pet pots, or any cups, as long as they're not breakable. Right, here's my CSUN cup. We could play with it and put things in it too, as well as having other measuring cups make great nesting cups. So instead of having to go out and buy nesting cups, you can grab a set of measuring cups, and that would be very fun for a child to play with. These are such great ideas. All right, so oops. So this is kind of making the point that just to play with a child, you don't need expensive toys. So there's no need to go invest and buy fancy toys. You can definitely just use things that you can find around the house, around where you are. There are a couple tips though to think about. It's great to find objects, and several of you found things, I think all of you found things that are very open-ended, which means that they can be used in a lot of different ways. And that's important so that the kids can really explore with it and do different things, because then it can be used at all sorts of developmental levels. And then just making sure to do a safety check on those items, right? So watch out for small pieces, sharp edges, and harmful substances. So BPA free, those kind of things. Another thing that kids love and that sometimes a lot of families we rely on is using technology, is giving a child having some screen time, or tablets, phones, iPads. I think those can definitely be used for interactions, and but the key is to try to do it together, to look at the items together. Right. Any questions, comments about any of that? All right. So.
Okay. Thank you, Connie. We are going to just jump into, if you do suspect that your child does have any issues related to those core developmental domains that I mentioned early on: social, emotional, physical, cognitive, language. We have some tips and tools for professionals and parents and trainees. And this slide really showcases some very general tips. We'll go into some detail. First and foremost would be to talk to your child's pediatrician. They are the kind of first line of defense and a wonderful resource to help your child. And when you do schedule the appointment, you want to tell the doctor's staff that you have concerns about your child's development that you'd like to discuss with the pediatrician. Another great tip is to write down your questions and concerns and to take these with you to the doctor's appointment. I know myself as a parent, I have thought up a million questions, and then getting to the appointment, I'm either nervous or anxious or trying to corral my children in the office, and it can be a little overwhelming. So using your notepad on your smartphones is a wonderful resource while you're there. And of course, we don't want this to happen, but if a doctor is discounting your concerns or dismissing your concerns, we recommend to always get another opinion and to call for a free evaluation. We know that the wait and see approach can be a real disservice to you and the child. And there's a host of literature and a lot of research to provide evidence to suggest that early intervention and early identification of any issues really, really matters. So the earlier, the better. And we have some wonderful resources to provide for you, articles and some literature that if you're looking for more information on early intervention, we're happy to provide those. So when intervention is done early, children are clearly more prepared for school and life. And there are resources, local resources that you can get connected with. And Victoria is a wonderful resource at the Family Focus Resource Center here at CSUN. We'll wait to talk a little bit about assessment and determining if a child is eligible, but just note that within 45 days that should be done. And these assessments are free and important for the family to get serviced.
Thank you. All right. I thought we'd switch to hear from Carmela to see if she'd like to talk a little bit about her perspective.
Hi, everyone. Carmela. So I just want to congratulate all the parents of being here because, to be honest, coming into an early intervention meeting like this is such a huge step. And I just want to say congratulations already because it's a big step, and learning ahead of it, you're making a great decision. So I just want to say kudos. So my perspective from the very beginning, everything they said, I really agree based on the experience that I went through with my now 3-year-old. So my son's name is Leo. He's 3 years old now. He's going to pre-K. And we did start seeing signs, but it's not really a sign. It's a very, very subtle signs, I guess. Like what Nancy said, we did went to the doctor's office, his pediatrician. It all started with, oh, he hasn't talked yet. That's pretty much the first one. He did, but he stopped. And for her, it was like, no, he should be talking by 20 words by now. I'm like, well, he's not. And then, like what Nancy said too, let's wait and see. But she did, but she has a very short amount of time to wait and see. And then if not, then we'll have to follow through. And I was wondering why you're making a big deal out of this. You know, culture-wise, he's a boy, he's too young, he's just a late talker. There's so many factors that could have prevented me from getting services just because of our background. So that plays also there. But it was my pediatrician that was kind of really pushing it. And then after the wait and see, she said, you know what, look for speech therapy. Just kind of let them check it out. And so then we found out he was have expressive delay. I said, okay, that's okay, that's fine, that's good. And then we started noticing that he's not really paying attention to us. He never said, Mama, Dada, looked at me, asked for help. He just go off by himself. And we said, oh, that's kind of weird because I have a 16-year-old right now and he is different kind of compared to her, not to really compare, but you do notice it. And then that's when I kind of asked the pediatrician again and said, oh, is this a little normal? And of course, our Google is out there for you to search things and start reading things. And that's when I reached out to the pediatrician and said, you know what, I'm kind of seeing this. What do you think about it? And that's when she said, oh, you know what, you might want to check out with a regional center. And I was like, what is that? And then I was like, at first, to be honest, I didn't go in right away because I was like, why do I need this? They're going to check on this. I'm like, no, it's not him, you know? But then again, the test that I started looking online, it was just kind of hitting the points. And then that's when we started getting everything to the process. And good thing by 2, he got into the early intervention. And to be honest, it was the best thing, not just for him, for us too. And if he didn't get into early intervention, for sure, I know, guaranteed, it would have been not just hard for us, but it would be more harder for Leo, because it would be harder for him to transition to school at that point. So, lesson learned, a lot, because this process is a whole different world, to be honest, and it's a constant learning process. And just know that there are people who are going through it, and there are also people who will help you throughout. Just family resource really is one of the places that you can go, and they'll connect you to the right people that can help you. And yes, that's if you have any questions, I have more to say, but yeah.
And we can circle back to you at the end too.
Oh, okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
want to share the beautiful picture.
Little Leo.
You want to talk about what you guys went? Was that a
Yeah, that was last year was his first Halloween, to be honest. First understanding Halloween, knowing what Halloween, how to do trick or treat. And then the first time we went to a pumpkin patch. Of course, we have rough patches there, but exposure to outside, little by little. But yeah, he had a great time. I had a great time with him too. That was amazing.
That's so great. Very good. All right. So we wanted to step back and talk about how important it is to get early intervention. That research has really found that there is a window of opportunity, that the brain is developing so much in those first few years of life, that there's lots of brain neural connections that are being made, and really finding out that the environment, the early experiences and relationships are really critical for just that growing brain, for promoting development. So it's really important to do those well baby checkups to get a sense of, how if the child is meeting developmental milestones or not. Nancy, you want to take over?
Hi. Yes, the main point really is that there is a sensitive period between birth and 3, and we can even say birth and the age of 5, where the brain, as Connie was saying, is quite plastic and malleable, and we want to provide children with all of the wonderful opportunities that parents and professionals can provide for our children. And so we see this, we coined it the window of opportunity because it is so important. We call this the sensitive period. And so when early intervention happens, we know that, as Connie was stating and Carmela, that we are optimizing children's development in those major developmental domains. One thing for sure is that as a parent, you know your child the best. We can get referrals and recommendations and suggestions, go online, access University of Google, but as a parent, you know your child the best. And so if your child is under the age of 3 specifically, we would encourage you to call the local Early Start Intervention Program, which we also have a link for at the end. Assessments are free, so there's a low risk. We encourage that conversation to be had, a transparent conversation between parent and medical provider. We also want to say, and I think this is really crucial, is that Google can be wonderful, and the internet can be wonderful, full of great resources, but it can also be fueled with misinformation. And so we always encourage to access information that is empirically data-driven. This would be coming from a professional, medical professional, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, speech language pathologists who really do work and use work from research and science to implement programs and interventions for children who are at risk for atypical trajectories. And so just a one-liner to beware of any misinformation on the internet. And then, of course, to check in with Family Focused Resource Center, as Carmela was saying, they are full of information with professionals ready to help. The other thing that Family Focused Resource Center does really well is encourages parent-to-parent interaction. And so other parents are a wonderful resource. And maybe Carmela, you could add to that if you had any experiences with connecting with other parents who are also at the same stage of life or in the same boat, as we say.
Yeah, actually, at the Family Resource Center, they do have different meetings or groups, a lot, to be honest, and you can see which one that you can be in the group and be able to share some experiences. There are tips, advices, and to be honest, just to know that another parent is going through the same thing, it's such a relief to even know that that burden is just, it happens to everyone, and there is a way to go through it. And there's someone that kind of feels the way you feel, and you're not alone. Not knowing that you're not alone in this, that's a big deal as well. Yeah. Oh, and also Family Resource has a lot of different activities outside that they can advise you on. Like, because I forgot to mention in the beginning that my son was started with speech delay, and then he became global development delay, and now he's diagnosed with under spectrum. So having that activities constantly is really helpful for him, and I get some advice from Family Resource on how to expose him more to that, and it was really helpful.
Thank you. That sounds great. So in the chat, there is a link to the Family Focused Resource Center, so you can save that link. It's important. It's a good resource to have. And also feel free, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. We'd like to make this interactive too. So. Right. So we like to take the time now to kind of talk about several different developmental domains and kind of just point out what is expected, or what are some of the things that we look for in the different domains. So we're going to start with the social development. And with social development, first of all, what is social development? If anyone like to take a stab at it, or guess, or put in the chat, what kind of things are we looking for when we talk about social development? Yes.
I think that includes, interacting with other kids, peers, siblings, maybe other children at daycare or preschool.
Definitely.
Learning to play.
Definitely, yes. And I see in the chat, learning how to approach other peers with playing and talking and conversation and play, and how they respond to each other. Exactly. So social development does incorporate a lot of things. It starts with kind of in the very early ages with the infants, just starting with the sense of being, of who you are, and then as you go with the sense of belonging too. So you have this being and belonging, which then leads to these peer relationships and social competence, which does include all of those things that were mentioned. One thing when we talk about the sense of being, we kind of think about self-confidence and building self-esteem. So if we think about self-confidence, we want to think about, well, what does a child who is self-confident look like? What would a self-confident baby look like? What would they do? Does anyone have any thoughts on this? Carmela?
Approaches another kid when they're so confident, they just approach and say, let's play.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely, they don't hesitate. They'll
Mhm.
go about and just try things out. Yes, and they'll smile and they laugh, and they you see it even really young children with the infants and toddlers, the ones who are really confident. Now, of course, there are some cultural differences, but for the most part, you'll see that children will take a chance to do things if they have that self-confidence. And as they try things, and if they're successful, then it kind of builds upon each other, and they will try it again and hopefully encounter more success. And sort of these experiences will help them also deal with deal in a better way when things don't go right, when they have some failures or they get frustrated, as long as it's not all the time. Having that self-confidence will help them kind of work through those different things. And then self-esteem really is how they are feeling about themselves and getting the messages of acceptance. So really thinking about how it's very important for families to that there are messages going on with the interactions that can play a role in a child's development of self-esteem. And then what we always think about for social development is that interacting with others. So this includes things like initiating and responding to social overtures. And social overtures being when somebody either greeting somebody or going up to another child asking if they want to play, or just giving something to somebody or asking for help, just making an initiation. And then also responding, so that when someone, as Diana said, responding to other people, if someone talks to them, that they can talk back, or if someone smiles to them, they'll smile back, which is something that we need to think about and kind of check to see when children are developing, to see is the child able to initiate these social overtures, and are they responding to them? When somebody points to something, will they look to see where they're pointing to? Those type of things. And also includes playing with other children or adults too, whether they're playing next to children or and then developing that back and forth interaction, that I do something, you do something, and going back and forth. Social development also covers sort of the pro-social behaviors, and pro-social behaviors meaning things that behaviors that create a more positive emotional climate. So things of thinking about taking turns and listening, sharing, helping, that kind of promote these ideas of respect for others. And then we also want to talk about emotional development and regulation. And this can be difficult. This is sort of how children are developing and identifying their own emotions and other people's emotions, as well as learning how to manage their own emotions. And this can be very challenging thing to deal with, because every child will have different ways of thinking about this and of managing these emotions. So when you look at all these different developmental domains, there are a lot of developmental milestones that are available, and there's lots of checklists available. Did we share those milestone things from Help Me Grow LA? Or will we share those that we can add those in? So there are Help Me Grow LA. Pardon?
I think they're part of the resources pages.
Okay, great. So that's as part of the resources, and there are different, let me just give me a second. Just wanted to show. So what you can see is on your resources, there are, oops, let me go to the top of it. This one is an extended kind of a longer document. It has 24 pages because it goes through different age ranges, so that you can see that's at 2 months. What are some things, some guidelines, 6 months, I think at 4 months too. And then it goes to 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, so forth. And so that can be a really helpful resource if you're concerned about if your child is, or you want to know what are other children doing at about approximately the same age. We also have, they also have a shorter version. This is a 1-page version where you can kind of look just all on one sheet, on one place, to see what are some of the key things to check if your child is on track. And so that will cover some of the different developmental domains. So it's helpful to look at and do this. And for the purposes of this presentation, we're not going to go through one by one and every month and go through everything, since you may all have children or work with children of different ages, but that's a nice reference for it. And sorry, my screen's moved around again. Okay, so in terms of social development, there are some tips that we have for promoting social development. Really fun to do, and is just to look at books together or sing songs together, especially any books or songs that have a lot of repetitions and rhymes. This is a natural way to include some nice back and forth interaction and interacting with other people. So if I said something like, brown bear, what does everyone say? They say see, right?
See.
Yeah, right? It just makes you want to interact. Finish that off. So just something as simple as those repetition of the things really can help children interact and not only promote language, but also these social interactions. Lots of games and activities and playing, especially for the younger kids, a lot of sensory motor play, just playing and exploring with different objects, as well as even some of that rough and tumble play, some little tickle games, and being able to, interact and play and, chase and, lift up and hug and squish. All those great things are ways that you can promote social development. Then I have a list of sort of simple strategies that you can think about and think about. So things like, being sensitive, responding promptly to your child. So if your child wants to do something, respond to your child. And it could be, if your child is wants to give you something or wants to do something, to try to take that time to make sure, even if you're really busy, to say, oh, that's great that you have this, but hold on, let me finish this and I'll come pay attention to you after. Because we know we're all very busy, but just taking that moment to respond quickly to your child can be really helpful. Other tips, like set aside your phone and really show interest in what the child is interested in. So if your child is interested in playing with something with a box, and show that you're interested, like, yay, it's a box, even though maybe in your head you might be, oh, it's a box. Just trying to show that interest so that you can share that excitement. Get at your child's level, try to join in what they're doing, and keep trying. Sometimes it can be hard to play with your child or do things with your child, and it is tough. So, I'm here to say, don't give up. Take a break, take a deep breath, and then you can try again. This sometimes, for some kids, in doing social activities can be difficult. So it might take a little bit more work on your side to just try again. So be persistent and try that. And then make sure you set some limits and according to what works for your family. If there's certain rules that you have, you don't have to say, oh, well, you can do whatever you want. You want to still be able to set your limits, but do whatever is comfortable for your family. And of course, recognizing and encouraging behaviors. So with that, is there anybody that wants to share an example that has helped your child or client engage socially? Or we can share a little bit later.
I'll share one.
Okay, great.
I have 9-year-old twins and a 6-year-old. And so on the, if we're taking a trip to, I don't know, maybe long distance somewhere, I'll just say, what do you see out, right? Like what do you spy with your eye, right? And so I see a tree. Can we find other words that rhyme with tree? Right. And then whoever gets it gets to decide and pick a word, and then we go back and forth. So it kind of gets the family talking and gets their brain moving. So
yeah, that's great. Definitely. And all that back and forth, all that interaction is great. All right. We're going to keep going. Let's go to Nancy with the physical development.
All right. Thanks, Connie. Okay, we'll spend just a little bit of time on physical development. I think this is one of the most obvious domains related to gross motor development, using your large muscles to walk, jump, hop, run, skip, anything that relates to those big muscles, and fine motor development. So if you were to ever pick up a Cheerio with your pincer grasp, your thumb and your index finger, or if you've ever seen a child do that, that would be considered a fine motor activity. Other things include buttoning, zipping, beading, all sorts of fine motor activities related to rolling Play-Doh, cutting using small scissors, and pinching dough, for example, when baking or cooking. So those are just two of the major areas of physical development. I also just want to mention that there are 7 senses. So we often think that there are 5 senses, but there are actually 7. And this is related to physical growth as well. And the usual suspects are sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, which we all know babies love to do, and young children. But there's also something called vestibular, which is related to movement and balance. And essentially, if you know where your head and body are in space and time, that would be considered vestibular. The last one is called proprioception, and that is just a big fancy word for also understanding your body awareness and having a sense of your body at all times. So those are the kind of main parts of physical development. I do want to share some tips for physical activities. Since we know that physical activity is not just related to the body, but also the brain. So it's changes in growth and skill development related to brain, muscle, and those 7 senses that I mentioned. Some of the tips include doing activities that we normally would do, but not forgetting the activities that we might take for granted, like having a dance party in your home. If it's raining like today, we can't go outside to bike ride or use sidewalk chalk, which I also mention here. But thinking creatively on what activities you can do that get those gross motor activities going. So dancing is a great one. So for fine motor activities, some tips include playing games that involve the hands. You've all probably played patty cake or peekaboo or this little piggy, or even puppets that engage a young child and capture his or her attention. And using your hands really show young children how we can physically interact with the world around us. And these hands-on activities are free. They're simple to use, and they're engaging for both the parent or the professional as well as the child. I mentioned some of the other activities that can promote manual dexterity: threading, beading, buttoning, painting. All of these activities can be done with materials that are low cost. I know the Dollar Tree in my area has everything on this list that really could be low cost for a parent or professional. And then, of course, cooking or baking, helping the child mix, spread, pour, squeeze, flatten, all of those activities that help them with issues with their hand movements. Any kind of practice to help coordinate those fine muscle movements is really, really important for fine motor development.
All right, so then switching to our next domain, which is cognitive development. So cognitive development in general is kind of like, oops, the wrong thing, is like the thinking, right? So Winnie the Pooh, when he says think, think, think. It's the ability to learn, understand, apply, and evaluate knowledge about the world. And it does develop as children interact with different things and different people and different events, and helps them figure out and understand those items, those things, and the whole world around them. So things to think about include, when we think about cognitive development, include thinking about attention and engagement. So if you think about it, if a child is not paying attention or is not engaged, then the chances that they'll learn is a little bit lower, right? So for all of you, the more you're focused on what we're talking about and attending and engaged with what we're talking about, the more likely you'll learn information. So the same thing applies to the children. So more likely to learn if they're focused and attending to things. So for example, here, then if that child can pay attention to a bear and an adult, and whether that's a teacher or a therapist or the caregiver, then the more that child will learn things, it'll help them figure out the world as they interact with both of those items, both of those things and people. Cognitive development also includes things like those pre-academic skills, problem solving, questions like, how do you solve, something's not working out right, that puzzle piece won't go in, how do I solve this problem? Sorting, classifying, and sequencing, how do those objects relate to each other? Also includes memory and imitating things, imitating movements as well as words and sounds, and also being able to recall. And then, of course, the pre-academic skills, we want to think about just start developing a number sense and some of those pre-literacy skills. And then play. Play itself is also a way of thinking about different cognitive development. We play for social purposes to learn how to share and take turns and go back and forth, but we can also learn with play or having kids learn to play at different levels. So a child may play at a really basic combination or functional level where they play with toys the way that they were meant to do. They put the little toy shoe on the bear, but then they can move to something more that requires more cognitive thought, like pretend play, symbolic play, where they're actually pretending that something is actually something else. So for example, here, instead of putting the toy shoe on the teddy bear's foot, they're pretending it's a phone and putting it on, using it as like a smartphone and putting it by the teddy bear's ear as if they were talking on the phone. So you can see that it gets more complex and requires more cognitive development to do these higher levels of play, with the dramatic play being things like I'm going to be the teacher and you be the baby, and I'm going to take care of you, or I'm going to teach you, or even things to go that I'm a superhero and I'm going to save the bear from whatever they come up with. Other things about cognitive development, just taking what they learn and being able to apply to other situations and other settings. And self-determination is sort of being able to, we want to promote self-determination even from a very young age, is providing them skills and tools to make their own choices, and decisions, so that they really start learning how to become more independent and having that voice. A couple tips real quick. We want to make sure that when we promote their cognitive development, that we're doing something that's developmentally appropriate, which means kind of like that Goldilocks rule, not too hard, not too easy, but just right. And just right meaning that it's something that maybe they can't do by themselves, but with a little bit of help, they can do it. And so just that little help, then you can practice that until they can do it by themselves. And then you can move on to the next item and keep moving up and getting more challenging activities. But you want to be careful not to give them something too easy, because then they might get bored, and nothing that's too hard. Otherwise it'll get frustrating because they won't understand. They might not understand what to do. Definitely provide experiences to learn about objects, people, in the world. So you can learn through play, and really learning through any daily activities, having them participate in anything, going to the pumpkin patch, but even things as simple as just, having them help set the table and participating in snack time. Follow your child's lead. If the child is interested in something already and paying attention to it, as you said, attention is important, then pay attention to what they're doing, so that you don't have to spend your time trying to get their attention. So if they're interested in the toy train, then go play with the toy train, instead of saying, oh, well, come play with this, cool, or come look at this cool book that I really like. Just go with what they like. So then it's a little bit easier. It's one less step than trying to have to start with something else. Give choices so they can start making those choices, and wait. I think that's one of the hardest things for families and professionals to do, is give the child some time to respond. So wait. So even if you have to, cover your mouth or sit on your hands and just give them a couple seconds to explore with things and make a choice of what they want to do or what they want to say. If something is too hard, remember that developmentally appropriate, break it down into smaller steps. And give help whenever your child needs it. It's not cheating, because it's just all for fun and helping them grow and develop. So definitely provide help whenever they need it. And you can even challenge your child by being playfully setting up problems to be solved. So maybe they're putting toys in a cup, and all of a sudden you put your hand on top of the cup. That's a quick little challenge, and they say, wait, it's not going in, and see what they do. Do they lift your hand up? Do they get mad? What kind of things, or do they tell you, move your hand so I can keep playing? So all those things can help spark some cognitive development. Back to Nancy for language.
Thanks, Connie. Okay, a little bit on language development. One of the best trends I've seen lately is where a new parent might ask if they're having a baby shower, that attendees not bring a card, but actually bring a board book instead. And I love this because we know that reading is one of the best ways to encourage communication, both expressive language, what the child is saying to express themselves, but also receptive language. What are the things that your child is understanding? For example, if you had a 1-step command or a 2 or 3-step command, what are we expecting young children to understand from your command of please bring me your shoes over to the table and have a seat? And so that would be a 3-step command that we might expect an older child to follow through with, but that relates to kind of receptive language. So we want to encourage that both expressive and receptive language are critical in developing communication skills. And Carmela had stated earlier that one of the first concerns was Leo's language and using some first words when he was younger. So some of the tips that we have for language development include using really simple language, right? Keeping your words very simple and keeping those commands really simple. Using the outdoors to build language through curiosity. I wonder where that ladybug gets its food from, or do these flowers smell the same? So encouraging children to think and be curious in order to develop their expressive and receptive language. One of the things I like to do is encourage parents to build on what the child is saying. So if a child has a approximation to a word like app for apple, and they continue to repeat it, the professional or the parent might say, oh, you're referring to an apple. Apple. And word approximations are great, but just encouraging that child to learn the entire word and then to build on it. So you might say, look, the apple is red, the apple is round, the apple is yummy. So just building on things that are important to their little world. So repetition is good, and building on what the child is saying, repeating back sounds, words, and sentences to build their language development. Commenting on what your child is doing, and I think this is really important. It may feel like you are narrating all day long, and you may get tired of hearing your voice, but it's really important to comment on what your child is doing. I see that you are, and then insert their activity. I like how you are, and again, insert that activity. It's also really important to speak in one's native or home language to build on that primary language first and really enunciate your words. Young children love intonations and sing-songy voices, and that really resonates with them. And so we encourage that, that activity as well for building receptive and expressive language.
All right, so the next thing is self-help skills. And so self-help skills are very important to building independence, and they usually, even though it's their own separate domain, it's usually tied very closely to all those other domains that we've talked about, the social domain, physical domain, communication, and cognitive. And so they're tied into it. And so self-help skills that we really think about in early childhood are like sleeping, toileting and diapering, feeding, doing simple chores, dressing, brushing teeth, and grooming, right? Taking care of brushing your hair. These things are things that can be difficult for any child. Let's see. Oh, go ahead, Nancy, you want to take over?
Sure. Just to add that having these self-help skills really builds on adaptive functioning. And we know adaptive functioning really helps children perform these activities throughout their lifetime. And we encourage them, these skills to be independent over time. And of course, parents and professionals are there to help. The tips that we have for self-help skills include practicing sleep hygiene. Having a consistent routine is really important that encourages being quiet, calm, and having relaxing activities. We know that sleep hygiene is really important, not just for the child, but also the parent. So if a child is not sleeping, I mean, guess who else is not sleeping? It's a real dynamic system. So it's really, really important. Tasking children with simple chores, and this encourages building a sense of control and autonomy and their pride, as Connie was talking about, building that self-worth and self-esteem. Meal times are important. We want to encourage independence in using forks and spoons and practicing, and it will definitely be a messy journey, but a really important one in mastering those skills. And then toileting. That is really an important one, but also unique to every family. You want to be in tune with your child's readiness. Of course, the experts can provide some insight on timing and when that's important, as can your child's daycare, preschool, or nursery. But we also want to encourage that parents are really know their child's best. And so we encourage tuning into their unique needs.
And just to make note that, yes, when children do have sensory issues, this can be difficult. So, because they may be more resistant to it, they don't want to do it, or it's not comfortable for them. So, following kind of the tips from before too, little steps, and having some of these routines and everything, and just trying to help them be as independent as they can be really helpful. So what do you do if you suspect that something is not quite right? First thing that you might want to do is to consult your child's doctor, right? And as we said, if, as Nancy had mentioned before, if they take a wait and see approach and say, just wait, but you don't feel comfortable, then, go get that second opinion, which actually is on the next slide, where the professional might say, well, they might grow out of it. We just want to, because we know the importance of early intervention, we want to kind of get started with the process as early as we can. Get support whenever you can. Nancy, you want to keep adding more to this too?
Sure. Actually, I wanted to have Carmela, if she feels comfortable, chime in on any of these slides, because we know how important, first direct experience is. So Carmela, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you have anything related to, going to your pediatrician, getting a second opinion, or ensuring that there isn't a wait and see approach, and knowing with what feels right for your family, if you wanted to chime in on any of that.
Yeah, actually, throughout your presentation, I was putting some little notes here and there because if I can share that, yes, definitely wait and see. It's not always like the best way to go. If you do feel that is something wrong, and they said no, 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 there's always another person. It could not be maybe a doctor, maybe like Nancy said, look for a specialist or someone who really knows about the topic, um, and then find out through there. There's no one right way. There's always different ways. There are different specialists. There are different help. If financial is an issue, there's still help out there that can accommodate that. And also, like they said, you know your child, and there's no one specific child in the world. Everybody is so unique, and that knowing them, establish where they are at the time, and then figure out what skills do you think they need, and then go from the steps from there. And so it's not too overwhelming because it's a lot. It really is a lot. They're growing. It's a lot of information. So just piecemeal it one by one and then help them through that. Because when other people start making decisions for your child, think of them like, how are they going to be? So we speak for them. We're behind them. Well, we're the advocates for them. So that's what they always say. And I love that word because it's true. Our kids needs us. They can't speak for ourselves, but we're the one who sees it. We feel it. We know them. We'll fight for them. It's too much, but it's kind of like that though. So if you do feel something off, do reach out. There's so many resources. I am so surprised myself too, but if the doctor is probably not working out, family resource, check out.
Thank you so much, Carmela. The next slide really touches on reaching out to those professionals who have resources, but also knowing that those resources related to Help Me Grow and First 5 LA are not just in English, but English, Spanish, and a whole host of other languages, because I mean, we are such a diverse, unique state, and then specifically county in Los Angeles, where there are 9 million people with various needs and unique profiles. And so we want to encourage that that parents and professionals think about these resources and that they are available in various languages. So that's a wonderful, wonderful thing that we have in our state. All right. I think we've talked about this at length in the different slides for the domains, but essentially this picture embodies, you know, all that we encourage: to keep learning, to have fun, to keep it simple. I think that's the way that children learn, through their experiences with their parents and with their nannies and babysitters and coaches and all the other wonderful people who support and, as Carmela said, who advocate for them. So keep learning, making it fun and simple is really key. We have some slides here, and we're not going to go into too much depth on each of them, but we did want to showcase how there are tips and activities for specific age groups, because really what the experts share is that developmentally appropriate activities are important for children at different stages of their life. What we encourage at development of a 1-year-old will look quite different than for a 4 or 5-year-old. And so some of these tip sheets really are for you to look over and just, you know, see where you can share with your people and your advocates. For 1-year-olds, we encourage again, sensory motor activity and play. We encourage sensory bins that stimulate those 7 senses. We have talked about using instruments and everyday objects as instruments. Those are always a hit for the little ones. Blocks, stacks, nesting toys. Connie had mentioned earlier that anything could be used in everyday households, but nesting toys are really popular because they encourage 1-year-olds to explore the dynamics of those objects. And really making eye contact and getting down at their level. If we are standing and looking down at our children, we are giants to them. We really are big giants. And so we encourage that you actually get down on the floor at their level, at their eye level, and get messy and play. And keeping things animated and fun and repeating as much as possible for those 1-year-olds. We also have tips and activities for your 2 to 3-year-old. Songs come into play, really important. The Wheels on the Bus. I think I've sang that song a million times over with my kiddos as they were growing up. And my daughter, who's 9, just asked me to play Simon Says just the other day, and she's 9 and still kind of enjoys that activity. So thinking about activities as they evolve with your child at different ages. I want to highlight that reading is super important at any age. Really, when there's that burst of language development between 18 and 24 months, we should be encouraging a lot more reading of board books, picture books, activity books, because we know that it can kickstart language development. And there are a whole bunch of resources related to why reading to your young child is important, even though they can't read, that builds their receptive language, as we talked about earlier. And of course, readers, as we know, are leaders, and we encourage reading at all levels, but especially during these young formative stages. And then finally, from 3 to 5, again, we think about those windows of opportunity, and this list could have been 10 slides long. We just picked kind of the things that we think highlight good activities, quality activities that you can be doing with your 3 to 5-year-old. Tracing letters, scavenger hunts, experimenting with different textures, space and color, a lot of messy play, water and outdoor play, as long as it is supervised. Nature hunts, simple board and card games. We know Go Fish and matching games are really important and stimulate the brain in many ways. And then, of course, as Connie had mentioned, using imagination and pretense to foster creativity in young children is critical to their development. And some of the things that we might notice is that children, for example, who have autism may not naturally engage in pretense play. They may not be drawn to that. So those might be some red flags if you don't quite see them in this age frame, that might be something to note and to mention to a pediatrician or a professional. And I think that's all for those tips and activities across the early years. Connie, would you like to add something? Or Carmela?
Yeah, since you mentioned if those children who are in spectrum, maybe if someone can relate, maybe it would be a red flag. I don't want to say red flag, maybe just like a sign. So Leo was not pointing. He would pull me by the hand, but he wouldn't say anything. He doesn't look you in the eye. Self-directed play, which means he could just be all over the place, but he would never play with anyone. And he would just cry almost like it feels endlessly, but you don't know why. Those are the ones that I can remember right now. So, so when it comes to play, it's a little bit difficult to have that social interaction with him because he's lacking a lot of those. So when Nancy was talking about, you be on their level, look at them in the eye, make sure you see them, that was really hard for me because there was nothing at all. So just kind of like mindful of those little things. It's very simple things apparently, and it's really big for them. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. That's great information.
Right, on the next slide, we just have some online resources so that you have some links to different, the CDC has a checklist for milestones too. So they also break down for what you might expect for each, for different ages. And so that's kind of quick and easy to look at too, in addition to those other milestones. The Department of Developmental Services, this is the website for the early start. So you can get information about if there are concerns, if you're worried about your child in any area, talking or walking or any of these other developmental domains, you can go to seek eligibility for early start services. So the website here is a great resource. The Early Start actually also has a little library full of really nicely written articles and information that's kind of been vetted out. So you can look through that information for different topics that, click on whatever is interesting that you want to learn more about. There's also a lot of local resources. Top of our list is the Family Focus Resource Center. So the website is there, great place because they can help connect you with any of these other resources too. And also to get some parent-to-parent support. The North LA Regional Center, if you are concerned, you can just click on the application to start the process of looking to see if your child will be eligible for additional services or if you are eligible to get additional support. The Child Development Institute, Help Me Grow LA, First 5 California Program Services. There's just a lot of things that are available.
Thank you, Connie. I just want to say a couple words about some of these. First, for the Family Focus Resource Center, we do have 4 offices. 2 are in the San Fernando Valley, 1's in Santa Clarita Valley, and 1 is in the Antelope Valley. You can call whichever office is closest to you. At our Northridge office, we do have some staff that specifically work with early start parents, and they're here on this workshop. There's Jennifer Burns and also Arlene Flores. So they are available to talk to any parent or professionals who are looking for resources for very young kids or who might want some information or advice about how to go about applying for regional center services if you haven't done that already. There is an online application. It isn't hard to do, but it does take a little time. And if anyone has any questions about the application process or wants some guidance, we'd be happy to help show you how to do it. And maybe some suggestions on, with the questions, what they're asking and, what information to include. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. And then I think we wanted to just leave you with these list of some no-cost, 10 no-cost screen-free activities. Do you want to summarize them for Nancy real quick?
I think they're self-explanatory. This is a list that, we found online and really just highlights how easily accessible they are. They're free and they are screen-free. We, as parents and professionals, have a little bit of concern when it comes to all the screens that our children are seeing, perhaps at school or at home or with friends. And it's just part of everyday life that we're living these days. But there are options for screen-free activities that can promote and stimulate the social, emotional, language, cognitive, and physical development of children. And you can see this list. It's not exhaustive, but it just has a couple of examples. There's lots of teachable moments for children's development. We wanted to just save a little bit of time. I know we are running out of time. If anyone has any questions, comments, would love to take some of those now.
I did want to point out that the Family Focus Resource Center is for anyone who with any concerns. It doesn't have to be a specific disability or a specific, it doesn't have to be autism. It doesn't have to be necessarily a specific diagnosis of anything, but does include they have resources on different disabilities too, like Down syndrome and probably, just a wealth of information. So I just wanted to make clear too that it's not just towards one area. Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you very much. Lorena just put something in the chat about an event she saw on our website. So I'm putting in the link to the our calendar on the Family Focused Resource Center website. We have a lot of workshops like this, and we also have community events that we include. And this time of year, starting next month, April, May, there are a lot of events coming up, a lot of in-person family-friendly events. So if you've been missing family-friendly events, or if you have a really young kid and due to the last few years of COVID, you may not have had any opportunities to take them to community events. This is a good time to check out the calendar. We are planning spring play dates, in-person play dates at parks. We're working on finalizing all our schedules, and we'll be promoting those starting in, I think they'll start in April, but we'll have our schedule completed by March. And so there's a lot of fun stuff coming up, and we hope we will see some of you there. We will put this recording on our YouTube channel, and I have the presentation, and we can send that out to everybody who registered today. So I want to really thank our three presenters, Nancy, Connie, and Carmela, for being here today and for sharing your experiences and your thoughts about child development and early intervention and resources for all of our kids.
And we want to thank all of you for coming.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, please reach out if there's any questions or.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate your time and all the great information you shared. And we hope to see you all sometime soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Stay dry. Try to.
Yeah.
Go back to bed, right?